a particularly severe outbreak of bacterial meningitis plagued Kano, Nigeria, resulting in a 10.7 mortality rate, the highest ever recorded. Due to the lack of accessible health care, many were not given any treatment in the earliest stages. Children were primarily infected and succumbed to painful symptoms like high fever, trembling, rashes, nausea, and seizures. Among the dying, two very different emergency companies erected medical camps. The first ones to arrive was Doctors Without Borders, a worldwide humanitarian company that delivers emergency medical aid. The second camp, Pfizer, a renowned New York-based pharmaceutical company, erected their facility just a few feet away. Pfizer's objective was to take full advantage of such a large number of afflicted subjects by conducting drug trials in order to test the efficacy for a new antibiotic, trovafloxacin, and have it approved by the FDA in the United States. In order for any new drug to gain approval, it must undergo a series of extensive human trials, which was, at the time, impossible to do in the United States since the number of meningitis cases among children were so low. If approved, Trovan would be a lucrative blockbuster. Doctors worldwide would simply prescribe the oral medication to be taken over a span of days versus the standard drug, ceftriaxone, which was administered intravenously. The approval of an oral dosage of Trovan would be beneficial for several reasons. It is appropriate for any age patient, it is the easiest route of administration, no nursing or supervision is required, and the common pain inflicted by intravenous dosages would be non-existent. In itself, the human trials in Nigeria would provide patients access to health care that would otherwise be inaccessible to poverty-stricken families. Though many argue that the timing of this drug trial was simply unethical. Quote, "It was not time for a drug trial," unquote, says Jean Bradol, former president of MSF France, to whom Kano teams were reporting at the time. Quote, "They were panicking in the hospital, overrun by critically ill patients. The team were shocked that Pfizer continued the so-called scientific work in the middle of hell," unquote. Aching patients who wandered into Pfizer's camp were randomly selected to be given the experimental drug, Trovan, or the standard drug, ceftriaxone. The drug was to be orally administered for 5 days, while the patient remained under staff supervision. Yet there was a major problem. The patients were not told that they were participating in a trial. According to medical ethics, informed consent is the process by which the treating healthcare provider discloses appropriate information to a competent patient so that the patient may make a voluntary choice to accept or refuse treatment. Instead of disclosing their intentions to patients or guardians of the patients, Pfizer withheld vital information in order to continue administering these drugs, therefore essentially robbing the patients of autonomy. Pfizer's doctors didn't even have the compassion to inform them of the free medication that Doctors Without Borders was dispensing only across the camp. At one point in these trials, a 10-year-old girl, later widely known as patient number 6587/0069, wandered into Pfizer's camp believing it to be another medical refugee center. Without understanding the implications of agreeing to be treated, she was given the experimental drug. On the first day, one of her eyes froze in place. On the third, she was dead. For the length of those 3 painful days, Pfizer made no attempt to save her life by changing her dosage, despite observing her declining health through body evaluations and spinal taps. According to medical ethical guidelines, if the patient under supervision shows signs of worsening while on the experimental drug, they are to be taken off of it and given standard medical care. To conclude, 3 debatably unethical actions were mentioned in regards to this case. 1. The fact that human trials were being conducted in a very desperate time in Nigeria, making it sort of exploitative. 2. Pfizer never obtained informed consent from either the patients or the guardians of the patients. 3. No attempt to save the patient's life, the 10-year-old girl known as patient number 6587-0069, was made. My solution to this would be as follows. Continue with the Oversee Human trials despite it being obviously exploitative. In a utilitarian sort of view, these trials not only allow for thorough medical research, but provide the opportunity for poverty-stricken families to access otherwise too expensive and unobtainable medication. This way, overall beneficence and pleasure is obtained for everyone involved. Yet, unlike Pfizer, conduct these trials in humane ways and with full consent. Allow patients to make informed decisions about their own health care and with full disclosure of the procedures, including benefits, risks, uncertainties, and alternatives. As Kant's notion follows, we should treat others with equal moral value, not merely as means. These patients were not only regarded as means for Pfizer's experiment, but were treated as subhuman, as if they did not have intrinsic value. I firmly believe that if Pfizer faced the same conditions in the United States, and with probably white children being the ones primarily affected, not only would there be a national outcry at their unethical actions, but it most likely would not have happened at all.